All right, we are live for the March industry wrap-up and roundup for the cannabis industry here with GreenGrowth CPAs. Thank you for joining. If you're watching the replay, just go ahead and skip ahead a few minutes. We're going to get started in just a moment here at the top of the hour. But if you are here for the live, please let us know where you're calling in from in the chat, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Let us know where you're calling in from and what part of the cannabis industry you're in. Are you a cultivator, manufacturer, retailer? Maybe you're an ancillary business. Maybe you're even just an investor or someone on the sideline waiting to get in. So looking forward to it. We got a lot of great stuff coming up today. Again, drop in the chat. All right, I got Melissa here from Los Angeles. I miss Los Angeles. I moved back to Michigan here about a year and a half ago. Enjoy the sun for me. It's still very cold here. We got snow last night in Michigan, so something else. All right, we'll get started here in about maybe 60 seconds or so. All right. All right. Tax prep and compliance from Marie. She wants to, beautiful. Good stuff here in DC. All right. DC, lots of stuff not popping over there, but DC is kind of getting hot with the cannabis stuff this week. We got a lot to talk about with the vote that's coming up and the amendments that were talked about today. So good stuff. Taylor, LA, marketing. That's what's up. Me too. All right. Bobby's in Vallejo, California. Good to have you, Bobby. Thank you for joining. Oh, Sharon SoCal from Denali Accountants. Good to see you. Great to have you on here. Beautiful, y'all. Beautiful. All right. We'll get started here in just a few moments. RMS here is a California retailer. Good to have you. Thank you for joining. The room is filling up. Very excited to see everyone joining in. Sam from Ventura. Nice. Out in the valley. Good stuff. Actually, Ventura's past the valley, I think, is a whole next county, but excellent stuff. All right. It is the top of the hour. Without further delay, let's jump right into the presentation. Before we get started, I need to let you know that the information contained in this presentation is meant for guidance purposes only, and that is professional legal or tax advice. And further, it does not give any personalized legal, tax, investment, or any business advice in general. So real quick, an agenda for today. The first half of the presentation, we're going to cover some big industry developments from the past 30 days or so, covering taxes, finance and M&A, licensing and regulations, legal updates. These are going to be short but meaningful headlines that are going to impact you or at least give some guidance on what the rest of the year might look like. And then second, we're going to do our financial market review that we published earlier this month, as well as do a dive into Planet 13 and Grow Generation analyst reports we produced this month as well. Talk about the stock performance, the business performance, the guidance for 2022. And then finally, throughout the presentation, questions are bound to come up. So please drop your questions into the chat. I'll get to them when it's possible and practical to get to those questions. And then that's pretty much it. But lastly here, before I jump into the meat of the presentation, I have 3 housekeeping items. If you did not get our report, our cannabis stock market report, I'm going to drop it to the chat now. You can go to this website. This is our website. Check it out. And you can find out, get the report. We publish it on or around the 10th of the month once all the data is available. Second here, if you haven't gotten any of our stock market reports, we usually publish those on LinkedIn. I'm putting that link here into the chat. So check out our LinkedIn. Make sure that you follow us. Keep up with our latest analyst reports. They will potentially be going out via email, but we want to keep the conversation on LinkedIn surrounding those reports. And then third, right here, if you need help with anything finance, tax related for your cannabis business, then please reach out to us via our website. It's right here, greengrowthcpas.com, or give us a call at 800-674-9050. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and the subscribe button. Let's hop right in. Let me pull up some of these articles here. We're going to go left to right. I want to share my screen as well. So let's pull these up. Sharing the market reports window. Boom. All right. Let's pull all the way over to here. And we'll pull me in. All right. So excellent stuff here. Lots of good things we've learned about this month. So first thing, let's talk about some taxes here. So California localities are extending tax relief to cannabis companies in the absence of state action. So since lawmakers have been very slow to lower the cannabis taxes, local governments throughout California are looking to grant tax relief to cannabis businesses. Now, the tax rollbacks are by cities and counties, mainly reflect lobbying efforts by the industry, as well as local residents and businesses pushing for these types of things. Now, as we all know, taxes are crushing legal cannabis operators and pushing customers towards the illegal or the legacy market. Now, this is a statewide issue. Could be even argued that it's a nationwide issue. It's not just one specific city or one specific county or even just a part of California. Now, all of this tax pressure is coming on the backdrop of a historic bear market in the prices of wholesale cannabis, which plummeted last year due to a supply glut. Now, remember, in California, as those prices drop down, the taxes, the cultivation tax, is a fixed cost per pound. So as the price drops down, that drove tax as a percentage of the pound sale per pound much higher, right? $160 on a $1,000 pound is much different than $160 on a $500 pound, twice the rate there. And prices have only begun to rebound. And who knows, we might see another historic glut again in the amount of cannabis in October. But in January, Governor Gavin Newsom said, hey, I got some ideas, but he's very light on the details. But 4 bills have been introduced addressing cannabis taxation at the state level. SB 1281 appears to be the most comprehensive. And among other things, it would eliminate the cultivation tax and reduce the excise tax down to 5%. But the localities and the cities and the counties, they're not waiting for these state tax things to kick in, because even legislative actions wouldn't take effect until the 2023 budget, which is far out, all right? Now, and that's the earliest it would happen as well. So one of the most highest profile moves was in Humboldt County on February 7th, when the Board of Supervisors voted to reduce by 85% the county's cultivation tax, known as Measure S. And Measure S is required a $1 to $3 per square foot payment, and the amount is dependent on the license type for cultivation. Now, those fees are calculated in the same manner with this reduction, but just you only pay 15% of those fees. Now, temporarily lowering this cultivation tax has showed the county's commitment to growers that have committed $50 million to the local economy via taxes. So this is good stuff. I like seeing that the cities are stepping up, because they're getting taxed as a cannabis operator from the state, the city, the county, and everybody and their brother and sister is trying to get money out of your pocket. But other localities here, Lake County, Monterey County, Sonoma, Berkeley, Long Beach, Palm Springs, San Diego, San Francisco, just to name a few here. So good stuff. You like to see that the cities and the localities stepping up for that. Now, the next one here, and no one loves to hear this one. This is actually a punch in the mouth, but it's a part of fighting in the cannabis industry. The IRS is going to be ramping up audits after their COVID-19 kind of dip in their audit count here. So like other federal agencies during the pandemic, the IRS pretty much put all their routine work on the back burner, including audits, enforcement, and collections from what we saw. But since last summer, the IRS has kind of turned those wheels back on, and things are kind of pumping out a little bit more. And as a result, the cannabis industry has been warning, we've been warning our clients at least, that there's going to be a new wave of these audits targeting their company's 2019 tax returns, which could result in additional tax bills. Now, remember, there's a 3-year statute of limitations for essentially immaterial errors, and that's just to kick off the audit. If they find something, they being the IRS, they can continue to dig for as long as they want. So they issued 50 letters in Denver alone, stated by one of the Denver tax attorneys. It's quoted in this article. But really, to be honest, cannabis companies need to get their financial statements in order as soon as possible, especially because the IRS has become very, very smart at finding tax dollars owed by cannabis businesses. You are potentially a first-time operator. Maybe you've bought or you started and exited. This is your second time in the cannabis industry, your second business in the industry. These auditors, this is their 12th audit, their 17th audit. They're really smart. They know what to look for, and they have algorithms working on their side. And just for example, since 2010, the IRS has created 5 special compliance initiative projects where they targeted audited cannabis businesses. These audits turned up tens of millions of dollars on unpaid taxes. This is a great return on investment for the IRS. There's no need to think that they're not going to do this again, especially when I think in December I talked about them hiring tens of thousands of new agents. This is something they're going to be going after. I'm not just trying to create hysteria. This is real life in the cannabis industry. Now, these audits are going to be likely around Form 8300. That'll be the beachhead into your business. Now, if you don't know what Form 8300 is and you're operating a cannabis business, then you're likely going to be audited and you're going to be in hot water. But Form 8300, it's essentially for payments in a transaction that are for $10,000 or more that cannabis companies or anybody actually that does cash transactions has to file within a certain amount of time. I think it's 2 weeks. I just put into the chat here a YouTube video that I made a long time ago about this. The information is very, very relevant still, but check out what Form 8300 is. It's very, very important that you stay in compliance with your basic filings. Form 8300, there's no additional tax. It's just hey, we're spending money, getting money, moving money for $10,000, not spending. It's receiving money for $10,000 or more in one transaction. And that can be over multiple invoices as long as it pertains to one sale. Now, the IRS is using agents to audit these cannabis companies from across state lines and not in person. These are called correspondence audits, not local agents coming to your place. These are more scalable, they're quicker, and that means that the agency is trying to increase the number of audits. This is like a real thing here. I'm not trying to create hysteria. This is real life. So be very thoughtful. If you don't have a CPA or someone to help you throughout this process, if you get an audit letter, please reach out to us via our website. Let us know, and then we can help you walk through this with confidence here. All right. That's the 2 tax updates. Now I want to go over 3 finance and M&A updates, kind of cool ones here, kind of showing how the industry is changing. First here is Benuvia, which is, I'm going to pull this up. So Benuvia, I'll just accept some cookies here. We'll see what that does. But Benuvia, a leading drug developer, is focused on pharmaceutical cannabinoids with an FDA-approved drug, has signed a definitive agreement to become a publicly traded company with Pono Corp, or Capital Corp, essentially a SPAC. They're going to go public here. Now, you're seeing more and more pharma products and businesses jumping into the cannabis industry. For example, in December 2021, on our industry update, I talked about how Pfizer is moving into the medical cannabis industry by betting on a promising cannabinoid-based bowel disease treatment. Now, Pfizer signed that agreement for $6.7 billion. This is a big company, the one they're acquiring. Now, this new transaction with Benuvia and Pono Capital implies a combined pro forma enterprise value of $440 million. Now, this is a company that has already has FDA approval, and they're going for 3 more FDA approvals as well. So the reason I bring this up, and this transaction is expected to close during the 3rd quarter of 2022, so about 6 months here to get that transaction to maturity. Now, and they're going to be listed on the NASDAQ. Now, what you're starting to see is big money, big companies sticking their neck out there because something's brewing in Washington. Something's brewing in the capital markets. Cannabis is not going away, and the big boys and the big girls are realizing that they might lose their shirt if they don't play ball. And this is them playing ball, getting into these big companies, buying them, making them public, getting liquidity, and punching them out. So we'll see how that turns up for the rest of them here. But I think this is actually the most amazing article here, is that Tilray is going to buy a rival's debt. So Tilray, huge cannabis company in Canada, they're going to buy their rival Hexo's debt up to $211 million of their debt. Now, again, this month, Tilray agreed to buy up to $211 million for Hexo's debt, which is going to give them a potential to get a big, huge equity stake in the company because Hexo is in some trouble here. Now, the deal gives Hexo a much more favorable debt repayment terms, potentially rescuing them from a years-long financial turmoil. Hexo's shares jumped 17% on this news. Everybody is up right now because of the hearing that's going on in Washington. We'll talk a lot about that. I see Lawrence is talking about that here. I've got a whole section on that. You've seen cannabis companies pop 20, 30%. Please taper your expectations. There's a lot to get here, but let's keep talking about Hexo. Hexo has endured a crippling overhang over the past 12 months due to punitive redemptions and discounted dilutive financing. There's a lot of bad finance deals. They got into bed with the wrong people or couldn't make good on their promises. Last year, Hexo disclosed an ongoing concern with its senior secured convertible notes issued on May 27th and noted that it may not have enough cash to help pay off that debt. Boom. In steps Tilray and they're going to take on the debt. Now, the latest deal provides Tilray with about $20 million Canadian in interest payments in the cost savings, which adds about 4 cents per share to future earnings, right? Because this is income they're going to make off the interest on that. And then $50 million in cost savings that's going to be split between the two companies within 2 years of completion of the deal. So this is good stuff here. Now, the notes are going to be purchased, and it also includes a kicker or a rider here for Tilray to exercise a conversion right at 90 cents Canadian dollars for each Hexo share, right? They can convert this into that. Now, that's kind of about at the price we're at right now. It's sitting at about 70 cents US, which is close to about the 90 cents Canadian here. So again, this is also from the pop from the Washington talks here, but this could be one of those deals where, you know, Tilray gives their competitors enough rope to hang themselves, or it could be to draw them in for a consolidation. I think it's very creative deal making, trying to keep the cannabis industry alive. It would be a punch in the gut to hear a company in the cannabis industry, a big one, go down. So Tilray coming in to save the day, hopefully. Now, the next one here is going to be Cresco. Cresco is crushing it here. They're purchasing Columbia Care. It's a $2 billion deal. So this acquisition is one of the biggest merger deals in the cannabis sector here. And the merger is expected to be completed by the end of this year. And when it happens, Cresco will have powered itself to become the leading position cannabis business in the U.S., operations in 17 states and D.C., and making it the largest multi-state operator by revenue in the United States. Now, according to published reports, Cresco's projected post-merger revenue will be in the neighborhood of $1.4 billion, as per the company's claiming. Now, from a strategic point of view, the merger not only expands Cresco's operating footprint from 10 states to 17 states, but it also extends the company's reach in key markets, including Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Colorado. Now, shares of Cresco fell on this, and Columbia Care shares spiked when the deal was announced. Again, things have been pretty volatile due to the meeting that's going on in Washington this week, but this is a pretty cool deal. You're seeing good consolidation, healthy consolidation, kind of teams linking up. You know, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with a team. And I think that this mantra that cannabis is a team sport is really showing in the types of deals that you're seeing with those kind of creative financing deals and buying debt from a competitor, financing at a cheaper rate, as well as these kind of mergers and acquisitions of the titans of the industry. Now, let's go into 3 licensing and regulation updates here. First one, let's just talk about it, get it out of the way here. There is a federal marijuana legalization bill officially scheduled for a vote this week. There was rumors about it last week, then you saw it on the docket. It's coming up to be talked about this week. Now, again, you may have seen these huge gains in stocks over the past 10 days. This is why, right? There's no fundamental change in any of these companies. It's just that it's being talked about. It's a sentiment-based movement in the stock market. Now, a way you could play this, if you're looking for, a setup, is that this happens every time there is a vote. The cannabis companies that have drawn down the most pump the hardest. So thinking about buying companies that have good fundamentals or a war chest of cash or even meme-worthy or meme potential stocks, they're ripping right now, to be honest, And then you sell on the hype of the vote. You buy on the down as the stock is down, and you sell into that hype, right? Because the moment that they vote and they say yes, or whatever they're going to say, likely it'll be a yes, that they'll pass it, it's still going to set the stage for other discussions. And let's get into that here. Let me step back. I want you to taper your expectations because this could be just political theater for midterm elections. I know that's not like a very savory taste, but this is just kind of the reality of what we live in, because other bills such as the CAOA in the States Reform Act will get hearings in April and beyond, right? Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker are putting their bill out in April. There's going to be a huge splash from 420. It's going to be a good one to potentially do the setup I just talked to you about. But the MORE Act is essentially not dead, but it's not going to be passing in its form that it is in today. But with that said, again, House of Representatives plan to vote on a bill to federally legalize cannabis this week, and the body will take up the MORE Act, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. Now, it's a bill sponsored by the committee chairman from New York, Democrat. An earlier version of the measure cleared the chamber last session, but later stalled out in the Republican Senate, the Republican-controlled Senate. Today, there was nearly 20 amendments that were discussed and kind of, hammered out here. So the legislation would remove cannabis from the federally controlled substances, promote social equity in the industry, and it's again going for a floor vote. The last time it did that, it went out for a floor vote December 2020. It passed by a pretty good margin here. Just 5 Republicans supported this bill, and one of those 5 members died last week. So I still expect it to kind of pass this vote, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But again, meanwhile, advocates and stakeholders are eagerly awaiting the formal introduction of a separate Senate legalization bill that will be finalized by Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York. And he says he's going to file this in April here. And you've got Rep. Nancy Mace from South Carolina, Republican, who has her bill out there. There's a lot still to talk about. And I don't think that you're going to see a finalization of any kind of cannabis legalization with this MORE Act this week. This is going to be it'll make you feel confident about that the tides are changing, but the tides have been changing. They just keep hitting against the seawall here. Hopefully that we can get some kind of spillover into some real material movement. But what are you really kind of going to see happening here? I believe we see incremental reform, not an all-in-one reform. There is no reason to expect all-in-one reform. While it's not impossible, comprehensive cannabis reform that includes federal legalization of the plant, it's just going to be a very, very heavy lift in a very divisive Congress right now. That's just to be honest with you guys. So it's important to focus on making this politically palatable and making progress and what's plausible to make progress, essentially. It's going to be more of a process instead of a time in history, right? I don't think you're going to see like April 21st, 2022 is when we legalized everything. I think it's going to be a building of incremental stuff here, which leads me to a few things, as Bobby's bringing up here, and Sam, baby steps. First one, I think the baby step, Safe Banking Act. That will appease a lot of people. It's just one of the first things that has to pass, or it's really putting a lot of people in danger, if not otherwise. The other one you're going to see is the Medical Marijuana Research Act. It's a bipartisan effort to expedite research into cannabis. Doing that could potentially create a bigger wave or get the ocean under the wave so that we can kind of have a bigger reform moving forward. You've got the HOPE Act potentially with AOC and an Ohio Republican the kind of working together. These people do not really care too much for each other, but they're trying to move a bill forward. So the HOPE Act might be another incremental reform. And lastly, the Veterans Equal Access Act of 2021, which would allow the VA doctors to prescribe and provide medical recommendations, provide medical recommendations for former military service members. So I think you're going to see more incremental baby steps, as Sam said, more than just some kind of all-encompassing comprehensive bill. But that's why stocks are running right now. Stocks are running because most people in the industry that are not in the industry are just ignorant of how this stuff works. They don't understand lobbying. They don't understand how small the cannabis industry is. It may be the biggest thing in your life, but there's a lot bigger fish to fry, as we'll get into later here. Another one here that I want to talk about, if you are in Oklahoma, make sure you are ready for seed to sale tracking. That is coming up. The deadline, you have until May 26, 2022 to get in compliance with METRC seed to sale tracking. If you have not already, get that together, especially if you're a client of GreenGrowth, you're really going to need to make sure that this is on point, because we use this data for our CFO clients as well. So make sure you get in on that, just to make sure we hit on that. And another one here for Connecticut. So if you're looking to get into Connecticut and you want to, move forward with, getting a license there, they have a lottery system, and they have not limited the amount of licenses. Let me just scroll this up so you can read the title here as I'm speaking. But essentially the title is that some people are going to be submitting thousands of applications in Connecticut. This is a lottery application, and there's very strong interest out there. And they're seeing that certain legal groups and consulting groups, their clients are going to be submitting 400 to 1,000 applications for a license. Essentially, the more submissions you have, the more tickets you have. With any lottery, the more tickets, the better your chances. Now, yes, this could be high in submission fees, but if you have it, then why not spend it? It's just going to be a cost of business. It's going to be a sunk cost. So make sure that you really get that stuff together. If you're going to be getting in there, that you might get lucky and submit one and get one, but just understand that the way that the macro in Connecticut is working is that people are submitting hundreds and hundreds of applications to increase their chances. Now, while there's no limit on the number of applications that can be submitted, there is a cap on the number of cannabis licenses that can be issued. And when there is a cap on the number of licenses issued and the diversity of those licenses and how it's issued, these are extremely valuable licenses. So yeah, you may have to pay $1,000 or $500. I don't know what the licensing application fee is, but it's going to be minimal in the chance that you do get one of those licenses, because once you get them, big companies reach out and you can sell them just like that. Now, now just getting back into that, if you're searching there, this is what you're up against, okay, in the Connecticut area. Now, let's go ahead and get the questions here. Bobby, he asked the status of Oklahoma METRC requirements. Bobby, May 26, 2022, make sure you get those taken care of. Everything, full compliance. If you have any questions, reach out to us via our website here, greengrowthcpas.com. Bobby asks also, how does license cap affect the social equity applicants? I am not sure specifically on how it's going to affect the social equity applicants. I'm not even sure that there is a priority for social equity applicants. I mean, I think there is something to it, but whatever it's going to be, if the pool is limited to that, again, I would assume that this is the case. Everybody, all applicants can submit as many applications as they want. The licensing body will then choose, maybe rationing. I believe 50% of the licenses likely go to one of those social equity applicants, and the balance of those licenses are awarded via the other lottery as well. So who knows how that's going to work out? Just know that you're up against very tough odds. People are submitting 1,000 applications. Adam asks, is there a site that has all the C-Red dentist per? I don't know what that means. If you could help me to clarify that, Adam, I'm not sure what that means. But let's go ahead and keep going for the legal updates here. Legal updates. One of them is from Ease here. And so essentially what's happened, you guys know Ease, the cannabis delivery group. One of their former CEO should get a lighter sentence on their because he helped convict his co-conspirators in a scheme to conceal $150 million worth of federally illegal cannabis payments through banks. Now, the government filed a so-called 5K1 letter for James Patterson, who is scheduled to be sentenced soon. He pled guilty in February 2021 to helping launder Eaze's payments and is going to testify next month. Testified the next month, against his co-conspirators who were convicted of bank fraud. Now, this is big stuff here. You know, you don't really want to be getting in those kind of shoes, but what they did is, or the alleged in the indictment that I read through, they were creating phony merchants that sold carbonated beverages, green tea, face creams, and other products to disguise these marijuana payments to circumvent cannabis banking restrictions. So no matter how creative and smart you are, your cashless ATMs, your and other schemes, if it's not sustainable, then it's probably not something you should be doing, to be honest. Adam says, is there a site that has all the compliance licensing info per site in one location? Nope, there is no such kind of there might be some kind of aggregator. Lawrence says here, Oklahoma METRC, everyone is compliant by May 26th. Yeah, so just to be honest, you know, there's not really a thing for every state or like all the states in one place. You have places like Marijuana Moment, tracking bills and things of that nature, but really your law firm is going to be tracking, because it's such a local thing about compliance and all these types of measures, what the rules are per your state, per your county, and per your city. So working with your legal team is really, really important to stay in compliance. If you don't have a good team, you're likely not going to survive in the cannabis industry, because it moves so fast and compliance is such a heightened sensitivity area. Now, two more things here. I wanted to crush through this in 30 minutes, and I'm pretty close to it here. Jones Soda. They are launching a new line of cannabis-infused products. Jones Soda is doing something, a 10 milligram soda, which is pretty pretty heavy relative to Cann, C-A-N-N. They have a 2 and a 5 milligram or a 2 and a 4 milligram here. And we're also going to be doing a 100 milligram 10-dose soda. So don't take more than a sip of that. And then 1,000 milligram syrup. I grew up drinking Jones Soda. I think it's kind of a cool thing to see a nostalgic brand coming in and working for the demographic and the age group that I am in here. Let's head on to the questions here. Adam says, will GreenGrowth be compiling info like that? No, we won't be compiling info like that. There's too much info and it changes too quickly. You need to have a firm of hundreds of people in AI to make sure you're staying up on that. So Adam, we can work on your specific location for compliance, but we're not going to measure the whole country because it's not a good business move, to be honest, because we don't know if we have any clients that will be in that area. But if you need help specifically on an area for compliance, certain city, location, reach out to us. Right here's our website, greengrowthcpas.com, and we can help you with your specific need, not a broad look at everything else. Last one here for the news updates is the NCAA. I think this is really cool, falling in line with major sports networks here, that the National Collegiate Athletic Association, also known as the NCAA, has taken a progressive step toward, with respect to its policies regarding athletes' personal cannabis use. These updated rules, again, are similar to the changes enacted by the NBA, MLB, and the NFL, which have all relaxed their cannabis testing policies. Now, changing to the NCAA's policies include increasing the threshold of THC that must be present in an athlete's body in order to trigger a positive test result so that it is consistent with the World Anti-Doping Agency from 35 nanograms per milliliter to 150 nanograms per milliliter. So nearly a 5x increase in the concentration. And the punishment for a drug test positive with THC was also heavily relaxed. The possibility of suspension being deferred from the first positive test to a second positive test, and the length of that being brought down from 50% of the season to only 25% of the season. So I think you're seeing good movement here in big institutions like in America that have great reach and commercial reach, showing that they're kind of in support of the industry. So that wraps up everything that has to do with our news updates. I wanted to make that sweet, powerful 30 minutes of content there. And next, I would like to jump into our financial analysis for the macro market, as well as jumping into analyst reports here. So let me stop the screen sharing. I'm going to pull up another set of stuff here. All right. Where are the reports at? Financial report. And we'll share this one here. Share a window. Bam. All right. This is our February financial report. If you haven't gotten it yet, you can go to our website. I've pasted the link into the chat. I will, you can see it right there. That is the chat, greengrowthcpas.com. So that's Cannabis Stock Market Report. You can check that out. Get access to the report here. We do email this out to our list as well. So if you haven't already, go to greengrowthcpas.com/join, Join. You can join our email list. And this report covers many different things as well, including the monthly economic recap, things like Fed meetings, inflation, labor statistics, commodities, as well as key performance of the indices out there, S&P, NASDAQ, Dow Jones. And then our proprietary GreenGrowth Cannabis Stock Index, where we track the top 7 by market cap, as well as the next 25. So the top 32 companies by market cap, and see how their performance is moving, valuations, quarterly results, things of that nature. But let's jump right into the report, go over some highlights, add some color and context. And then if you have questions, drop those into the chat as well. But going through this here, February has been another challenging month with everything overall. And I know we're talking about February, we're in the end of March, but look, this data is it's delayed. It takes time to produce this data for everyone to look at, and then we'll give you some context into what has happened in March as well. But on the monetary side, markets continued their very erratic behavior. The Fed said they're going to raise up the rates they said that in February they're going to raise the rates. Well, they actually raised the rates 25 basis points on March 15th. Now, this is okay. Why does this really matter? Because this is going to affect all types of rates here, especially your mortgage rates. I'd like to share a little quick thing here on, is this it? This is the 10-year. Yeah, let's share this out right here. So let's see, where is this? No, that's not it. Cool. We're looking at the rate here. This is the kind of the rates for mortgages. This is what's affecting that, and you're seeing it going parabolic essentially right here. At the beginning of February, rates were at 3.54%. They've jumped up to 4.42, so almost like a 30% increase. That's a big thing now, right? So when you have this going up, that could drive home prices down. But with limited supply of homes and property, this could keep housing prices flat. So you've got to kind of think about how that's going to be working out for you personally if you own a home or if you're looking to buy a home. So again, Fed rates going up. They said they're going to be between 6 and 8 hikes during this year, this full year. That's their guidance, or 3 to 8. They gave a very broad number there. But that is the first one there on the report. And then let's go ahead and let's jump a little bit deeper into the report about other particular items of interest for you here is inflation. Now, inflation reached 7.9%. This is 7.9% year over year. And this is the highest since June 1982. And it's driven mostly by energy and what they call food at home, which is your grocery prices, essentially. Now, gas has been up 24% in 1 month, 53% year over year. There's big things happening here. A lot of movement. Things are becoming more expensive. It's just exacerbating from all the QE that we've been seeing. Now, oil prices are last time you've seen this kind of inflation, again, 1982, and rates were very, very high at that time, to over 10%. Now they're sitting very, very low, and it could be a scheme by central banks or governments to kind of inflate their debt away, right? As inflation goes wild, their interest rate is very low, inflation is very high. They can kind of inflate the debt away and pay that back down. But it also creates a lot of volatility. For example, in oil, less all of our macro geopolitical things going on. I want to show you kind of what was going on with the volatility in oil as of recent. And this is here. You see oil was going wild at the beginning of February, sitting at about $88 a barrel. And it popped all the way to, I think, like 135 it maxed out at, right? So that's like almost a 50-60% increase, dropping down under 100 and just kind of being very volatile. So when you're in these high inflation times and so many levers are moving, you're going to see high volatility, and it's going to continue for many months. This is not just going to iron out and even out. I don't see that happening. Maybe you might see inflation above 7% for maybe 2 to 4 months and potentially cooling off in July or August, but I don't think you're going to see inflation at a 2 or 3% and kind of coming back to pre-pandemic levels. But I want to talk about an example specifically on the food at home and what has kind of driven this and things that are happening multiple months out or multiple years before that have longer extending kind of impacts on inflation. For example, with food at home and even food overall, with the geopolitical tensions up and changing day by day, we're seeing the potential for major increases in food prices. You're seeing fertilizer prices up 300% since the beginning of the year. Belarus, number 1 supplier of potash. Russia, number 2. Okay, China stopped exporting last fall to ensure that they had a domestic supply that was adequate for themselves. You got things like herbicides that are important for weed control. If you do bad weed control for 1 year, it could have many years of impact in lowering down these potential yields. Glyphosate, it's produced with nitrogen, phosphorus, and ammonia. Those prices are rising like crazy. Diesel prices, those drive the tractors, that's up 50%. Supply chain for the sensors and all the parts for those tractors, that's still backed up. You have a labor shortage because in farming, most of it's foreign labor. COVID vaccine mandates, those are posing a challenge for getting this labor across, and lots of industries are fighting for this same labor. Now, if you get all of that right, you still have to think about propane. We're at 35 days supply of propane in the US. This is the lowest in our 7-year moving average. This is used for grain drying. Now, some people think like, hey, I don't eat these types of things. I don't eat grains. I don't eat corn. I'm healthy. Great. That's good for you. But many people do. They're on the standard American diet. But also, it's going to put a major strain on them for the next 6 to 12 months when food prices, really do get pumping. So more money goes towards food and necessities, less money towards cannabis. I know it's a vice, and it may be how do you say this? It's recession proof. I think cannabis is recession proof. I just don't think that legal cannabis is recession proof. And that's kind of that, on a tough note there. But let's jump back into the report here. Labor market. So in February, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics reported that the economy created 678,000 jobs, while unemployment rate fell from 4% to 3.8%. This is very historically low. Now, taking a look at equities, again, in February, it's been a negative month of returns. It's been very, very tough. It's been very, very tough. And you've seen some bounce back in certain things during the month of March. This is good, but again, this is very volatile stuff. Is this just an exit pump to kind of get new money in, to get old money liquidity so they can exit their positions and get into bonds? Who knows? There's a lot moving on, and it's a tough market to call, right? And say, this is what's happening, because the moment you make that statement at 10 o'clock, at 10:15, something else comes in and compounds it and really kicks you in the teeth. So it's really hard to take a very steep position on these things and say, this is what's going to happen. Furthermore, let's just look into other things. I don't want to get too deep into the macro stuff here. I talked about this here. This chart just shows crude oil futures and how volatile things are. Just pulling out one of the commodities and showing you, hey, all commodities are moving up and to the right. You may not drive a car that uses gas. You may be using batteries or something, but to create that electricity, you're going to need commodities to make that electricity. It doesn't just come out of thin air unless you've got your own panel and yourself, sufficient all on your own. Great, that's good for you. I hope you're the best for that. But I talked about this already here. Diving deep. I don't want to talk about this. I'd like you to explore and learn a bit more about what's going on. But the S&P got hit, decline of 6.31%. Again, most of it from energy, utilities, and food at home. Sorry, energy went up, but food and home, these kinds of things are pulling the markets down. Let's just get into the last portion here, which is the cannabis stock index. What we saw here, what you see on the screen, this is our GGCI top 7 by market cap here. The index kind of turned positive, had a growth of 4.7% during the month of February. So you did see a little bit of a kick up in the larger, big boys and big girls playing. When you look at the next 25 here, they actually went down a little bit. They ended up like almost a 1% drawdown in the next 25 companies. Granted, there's going to be some winners and some losers, but the big ones have a lot more strength to pump than the smaller ones. There's more liquidity. There's more kind of mental space given to those companies because they're on the news and people have access to buy those essentially a little bit easier on Robinhood and these other platforms. But just want to talk about specifically those. Check this report out. The next one for March is coming out on or around April 10th. I think it's going to be a really eye-opening report for some people, just to be honest, But one thing I want to kind of bring up, what you may start seeing in the news, you may have started already seeing it today and tomorrow. Surely you're going to see it in March, I think, is inverted yield curves. Okay, now you may not have heard this. It's something that happens very rarely. Let me share an image with you from St. Louis Fed here. Where's it at? There we go. On the window. 10-year Treasury minus the 2-year Treasury here. Now you see that black line across, that's 0. That's when they equal each other. We're getting very, 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 very close to being the 10-year minus the 2-year. And that's how you measure an inverted yield curve. Essentially, what you should be seeing is that 10-year should return much higher than a 2-year. So 10-year rate, say it's 5, and the 2-year rate is 3, the difference is 2. Okay, now what if the 2-year goes higher than the 10-year? That's an inverted yield curve. That is below this black line. Well, what do you see happening every time this goes negative? You see these gray shaded areas. Okay, what are those gray shaded areas? Those are technical recessions for the United States. You see us right here on this right side, 0.06 is the delta. And you see the kind of the trend from April 2021 when stocks and everything peaked. That rate, like the angle of how close we're getting to an inverted yield curve, very, 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 very close. And you might even see that crossing very, very soon. Now, again, normally you see a 10-year rate higher than the 2-year rate, a positive differential above the black line. Inverted is a 2-year rate is higher than the 10-year rate. So let's dig deeper. I want to kind of explain this to you. Why would this, what about this? So when you look around, you see shit's hitting the fan pretty much. We might be going into recession. So that means the S&P might go down. Maybe it stays flat. Probably not going to invest in the S&P. We'll invest in bonds. Okay, well, what about which bond should we invest in? Well, the short-term situation looks kind of hairy right now, so we're not going to invest in the 2-year treasury. How about the long-term? Well, it looks kind of decent. Even if there's a recession, we'll probably get our stuff together in 10 years. And if we don't, who cares? We're screwed anyways, So long-term, check. Looks good. Let's go for it. So longer term, you invest in these 10-year treasuries. Now, when the demand for the 2-year is down, the price goes down, the yield goes up, right? And then the demand for the 10-year is up, the price goes up, the yield goes down. Now, the old economic chorus here, sing it with me, supply and demand, right? So the inverted yield curve is an indicator of potential recessions. As I said before, I think that cannabis is a recession-proof business. Who knows if legalized cannabis is going to be a recession-proof business? But it's getting very hairy out there, and we're getting to this kind of detrimental territory of, to be honest, inverted yield curve. Again, it doesn't happen that often, but you're going to start potentially seeing more discussions about this. So that is everything for the macro landscape I want to talk about here. Next, I'd like to hop in, talk just a little bit about the cannabis industry overall, and then jump into our Planet 13 report, which I'm going to pull up right now. So let's hit them with the Planet 13. All right. Oop, that is not it. Let's go ahead and hit it. This one here. This should be it. All right, there it is. Planet 13. All right. So what we're doing now is we're starting to do analyst reports of specific stocks. And Planet 13 was our first analyst report here. These are just broad kind of discussions about the company. We didn't go too deep. This is a request by people that joined our live stream many months ago saying, hey, can you do some kind of deep dive on this? So this is our first one here. But the cannabis industry overall has faced many challenges, including a sharp slowdown in sales in January, rising inflation, rising interest rates, because the Fed's trying to combat inflation. You've got continued supply chain disruptions, a delay in New Jersey launching of its adult use program, increased competition, which has pressed margins down pretty low, broad geopolitical things, weaker stocks in general. Things are getting kind of crazy out there, to be honest, So I just want to go ahead and let's walk through the report here. You can dive a little bit deeper into it by yourself. There's just all the different stuff that's in their filings and looking at it over time. I know it's a little fuzzy here probably on the report, but you can go ahead and get yourself a copy of the report. Let me just go ahead and put that link in here. If you want to get a copy of this report, follow along with me. That's the link to it on our website just to download the report. But Q4 2021, their revenue was up 48% compared to the prior year to $29.9 million. They had a net loss of $5.1 million compared to a net loss of $18.2. So they're losing less, which is good. An adjusted EBITDA of $1.9 million. Now, full year 2021 revenue is up 70% compared to 2020. Their net loss is a little bit less compared to 2020, 19.5 million compared to 25 million. And adjusted EBITDA for full year 2021 is $17 million. Now, during the quarter that is seasonally slower and marked by significantly less tourist traffic in Las Vegas and things of that nature, Planet 13 was able to maintain a market share above 10% in the Las Vegas cannabis market. Now, in addition to the competitive performance demonstrated by their superstore, that big store that they have, and their neighborhood store, their brands grew 21% in a market that was down 5% in Q4. So the winners are winning and the losers are just losing. But Planet 13 seems like it's doing very well materially in their home market here of Las Vegas. Now, similarly, while the California market was down in Q4, their Orange County store grew by 7.2% in the quarter, and it's backed by increased brand awareness. You're starting to see them in the news more. People are talking about them. It's kind of fun. You know, they have a freaking mall. They have all this cool stuff. They've opened up a beverage store for Cann. Cann is a beverage company, cannabis beverage company. So lots of cool things. There's some M&A highlights here. As Bobby said, Planet 13 is brilliant. They're taking a very different model than the mom and pop shop. They're saying, let's make a playground for cannabis. I think that is super cool. So cool. Bobby said he was there. I know if you go there, it's like going to Mecca. It seems like it's like, damn, this is really, really neat. Something very, very different. And it's paying off, you know. I know they're losing quarter after quarter, but they have a war chest to pay those things. There's kind of a pay to play in cannabis. At any rate, some Q4 highlights and recent developments. In Q4 2021, they acquired their Florida cannabis license. Again, in December 15th, 2021, they launched their shop in shop for Cann, which is that beverage company. December 20th, they announced their acquisition of Next Greenwave Holdings. The stock, again, it's soaring right now because of the hype around the vote, as we discussed earlier. It's up 50% from $1.88 at the time of our publishing to, or not, I think at that time of our publishing, close to the time of our publishing. It's up at around $2.65 right now. So big pump on it, about 80 cents there. Is that what that is? 80 some cents, which would be like about a 40% pump in that stock. You know, who knows the sustainability of all these pumps? And, you know, when you see a pump that's, you know, very extraordinary for the market overall and you're up, take profits. You can't go broke taking profits. So make sure you're taking profits if your stock is up. You're not going to see parabolic growth forever. But one thing I want to bring up about Planet 13, I want to share this little document here that one of our sales guys, I'm not sure actually who produced this document, but I got it from one of our sales guys here specifically, and it's got a lot of companies on here. I hope that you can see this here, but this is the audit fees of public cannabis companies. They disclose this. I don't know if they have to, but it's in their filings here. And you'll see Planet 13 right here, $700,000 on their audit. It's a lot on their audits they're spending here. You know, if you are one of the companies on this list here, you might be well overpaying for your audit. We can get it done quicker, cheaper, the same level of efficacy because the standards are set by regulatory bodies. We're a much more nimble firm. We audit very, very large clients. I'm not going to sit here and dish out the list of people that we audit for, but public companies in the U.S. as well as in Canada. So when you see $700,000 for an audit, I think they're getting ripped off. So who knows? Planet 13, if anybody from your team is watching this, reach out to us. We'd love to chat with you more about that, because the more that these companies waste on professional services because they don't want to shop around, the more money they're taking away from shareholder earnings. It may be immaterial, but at least you understand that if they're wasting money on audits, potentially they're wasting money on legal fees and other types of services. So just some food for thought for the operators out there. Yeah, Bobby, if you want to just screenshot it right now because I'm not sending this out. So if you want to copy, screenshot it, my guy. All right. So aside from this here, I'd like to talk about the next company we did, which is Grow Generation. Now, you may have heard Grow Generation. Let me just pull their report up here. Boom, right here. I'm going to pull it up for myself to look at. Grow Generation, I like these firms. These are kind of cool firms to look at. Why? Because these are the firms that are selling the the Levi's and the picks and axes, right from the gold rush. I hate the green rush term. I think it's a stupid term, but the gold rush kind of equivalent is selling the gold pick axes or the axe and the picks in the Levi jeans. Levi's is still around. Gold, it's still around, but the companies mining that gold are probably not around from the 1800s. So what I'm getting at here is they sell grow supplies. This is a really cool company. And the things when I listened to their call, their Q4 earnings call, it was lit, to say the least. Really cool stuff here. But granted, our opinion at the end of the whole thing, and you can go through the report here, but kind of what we sat down with is that, the company's overvalued. High PE ratio, way too high, way too high. Their PE ratio is sitting at 45.2x, where their peers are sitting around 8.23. But because they're in a specific non-plant touching, side of things as an ancillary kind of provider, does it warrant them having a higher PE ratio? Maybe, maybe not. That's for you to decide and do your own analyses. But from the call, when I listened to it, great information from Darren. I think Darren is his name, is the CEO here. Full year 2021, last year, 24 new locations. That brings them up to 63 locations. They grew their location count by over 50%. They're in now 13 states. For the industry that they're in, right, in selling supplies and things like that, the factors that I discussed at the beginning, maybe 8 to 10 minutes ago about the cannabis industry, about, for example, delaying the New Jersey stuff, LED lighting purchases and capital expenditure projects are slowing down because of the unknowns out there. Regulations are not out, so people are not breaking ground or buying equipment. The regs are behind schedule. No one's going to kick off, breaking ground on a grow op without having something more concrete in their hand from the regulators. But the company did say they're looking for more stability in late 2022. Now, full year 2021, their revenue was $422 million versus $193 million in 2020. So a double in their revenue, 118% growth. Most of that growth came from buying businesses, though, or a substantial amount, we'll say that. I'll get into some other M&A activity. Their full year 2022 outlook is $415 to $445 million. So really no growth in revenue, but there are going to be some efficiencies to increase their margins, which increases their profitability much better. They had 24% SSS, which is same store sales. Essentially what SSS is, when you look at a store that has a full year of sales, you look at that, say it's $10 million. And the next year they do $12 million in sales. That store over the same period had a 20% SSS. 12 minus 10 divided by 10. And I'll get you 2 divided by 10, which is 20% SSS. Now, understand, though, that 26 of their locations decreased in SSS by 12.3%. So some stores are winning, some stores are not winning. But we'll see how that shakes out for them. And as of December 31st, 2021, their balance sheet remained strong with $81 million in liquidity available to go out and crush it. They had 28% gross margins, which is versus 26.4% from the prior year, so 160 basis points. So again, essentially better earnings per share for you out there, which is good stuff on their end. I like this one here when they talked about in the calls that 8% of sales are coming from their own brands, or brands that they own. And they acquired Horticultural Rep Group, HRG is what I'll call them. And ARG has 750 store locations. So that's like 10, 12x what Grow Generation has as their own stores. And this is access that HRG has. And they have several distribution platforms. So this could increase the product mix for their homemade products and their private label products and white label products as well. And their main initiatives are around improving their resources for growth in 2023. This is kind of like a rebuilding year for them is what they brought in. But I'll hit it with this. I know we're running out of kind of time here, but hey, stay with me here. They have 5 initiatives Grow Generation did. First one for 2022 is to build 15 to 20 new locations. That'll bring them to 80 stores, and half the country will be covered in their stores. They have 7 indications of interest already signed for these stores, so they're nearly halfway there. They're also going to be investing in technology and operations excellence, being tested now, and they're going to launch a lot of their new technology in the spring. A lot of alignment of bringing different pieces of technology together. It reduces cost, reduces friction, and reduces essentially competition in the industry. They own many different properties. that are competing for the same buck and the same person. Just bring it all under one umbrella and they can provide efficiencies. They're also establishing a network of more distribution centers for their retail operations and e-com operations, as well as their commercial fulfillment. Their goal is to have only a one-day wait from the sites that they serve, so shorter delivery windows here. It's going to reduce procurement costs. It's going to be more customer focused. They've got one in SAC already. They're going to have one in LA. They got one in Tulsa. And in Florida, in the Midwest is going to be their last pillar. I believe they're going to be opening that DC up this year. And again, their main goal, another main goal of theirs initiative is to drive their proprietary brands and private labels and do more investing in product development. Now, their revenue mix in 2021 was 4% in their stores, and then 4% from stores that are not theirs. So this is good stuff for them. They expect to expand their product mix. And what I mean by their private labels, like they make a product that is like your nutrients. Instead of buying Fox Farm, you buy them. Why does that matter? Because you can only mark up a product you buy by 100%, right? You can double your money, but that's the only margin you can recapture. When you do private label, you can capture almost all of the margin and you can get it at a better price. And if it has the same efficacy, why would someone not buy it? And you're building up this thing you can sell out later. They want to increase their product mix by 50% in their stores, bring it to 6%, which would juice up the margins and kind of show those efficiencies and really where they can flex at. And lastly here is that they want to combine all of their e-com activities. So this conversion of bringing all their platforms into one is going to eliminate duplicate costs again and unnecessary competition for the same customer. So a lot of good stuff here, I think, for both of these companies. They're very exciting companies to be looking at. You should dig into the reports a little bit more, check out their stocks, make your own guess at it. You can read through our reports, but essentially, I know I went very fast, but that is our March update here for the cannabis industry. If you have any questions, I'll stick around. We're at about an hour presentation here. If you have any questions, drop them into the chat. I'm going to run through the chat here and check out and see what's going on, but I'd love to answer some questions about what I just discussed or anything related to the cannabis industry. Again, I appreciate you sticking around for this hour-long presentation here. Bobby brings up any news on the recent recreational states, Arizona, New Jersey, New Mexico. I don't have any specific news on these company or these markets. You could check them out specifically. I personally haven't kept up on them, but I'm sure there's something to talk about for them. Marijuana Moment is very good at tracking these types of things. Check them out. Bobby says, thank you. Hey, thank you, Vera. I appreciate you. Let me just see if there's anything else here. Yeah. And Lawrence said, hey, we don't have a specific like up-to-date subscription service where you can kind of get what's going on with regulations. There is a site out there. Let me just see if it's still around. I'm pretty sure it is. Used to be called Canna-Regs. It's now called Hello Philo. You might want to check this out. This could be another one that you can find regulations at and kind of keep up to date. It's a paid service. It's not, I don't think it's cheap. It wasn't cheap when we were using it, but it's something you could use to check out for different regulations. But yeah, staying up to date on those. But your lawyers should be staying up on all of these types of things. It's very rare that you're going to see someone just stumble into getting a license without having a very good legal team, a very good financial team, right? When you go to get these licenses, they're going to ask you for pro forma financial statements. They're going to ask you for standard operating procedures. If you don't have these things fleshed out with reasonable assumptions in your business plan, you're not going to get a license. Yeah, you may win the lottery, but that lottery might be just to review your application. And then when they review it, you're not going to have too good of a time. They're going to say, this makes no sense. Why do you say you're going to make $10 million when there's 200 license holders and a total addressable market of, $50 million? What makes you think you're going to get 20% of the market? So you got to really be grounded in reality when doing this, because they don't want, people living in their dreams too much to be getting these licenses. Because as much as they would love to give licenses to people that, hey, Michelle or Michael or whoever go and run your business, they also want to make sure these businesses are going to be around for the long term, because when you have huge turnover in an industry, it creates big inefficiencies. It creates bad press for the industry. They want to make sure that the operators are given these licenses to know their stuff. They have either domain expertise. They have, if you're a retailer, you have retail experience, right? If you've been a manager of a CVS or a Rite Aid or a fast food chain with high throughput, controlled substances, and I say that as a pharmacy, you probably have a better chance of, speaking to a legislator that needs confidence. Yet that will be a more big bow of confidence for them. But just food for thought here. But again, I don't see any questions. I just want to thank you all for joining. Again, if you have any questions about the cannabis industry, financial wise, accounting, finance, anything that has to do with cannabis, please reach out to us via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. We'd love to talk to you, learn a little bit more about what you got going on. If you are a public company and you're watching this and you need help with an audit, you want to reduce your audit fees and get the same kind of audit, just as good of an audit, but with lower fees and more flexibility in the way that it's implemented, please reach out to us. But aside from that, again, thank you very much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Have a great week, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good one.